Have you ever stopped to think about a strange, counterintuitive idea? The idea that having less money could actually make life more expensive. It sounds completely backward, I know, but as we're about to see, for millions of people, it's a fundamental economic truth.
It's a short sentence, but wow, it packs a punch. Being poor is expensive. It kind of stops you in your tracks, right? It challenges pretty much everything we assume about how money works. But this isn't just a clever saying, it is a harsh daily reality.
You'd think, logically, that if you have less money, your expenses would be lower. It just makes sense. But the way our economic systems are built, well, it's often the complete opposite. They have these built-in ways of penalizing people who have less, imposing these extra costs. You could almost call it a poverty tax.
So, where does this penalty even show up? Well, it starts with the absolute basics, the things we all buy every day. Let's take a look at how just not having enough cash on hand can force you to spend more, not less.
Okay, this is a perfect example. Think about groceries. If you have enough cash flow, you can go to a warehouse store, buy that giant bag of rice, and the price you pay per kilo is way lower. But what if you only have enough money for tonight's dinner? You're forced to buy a tiny, single-serving portion, and the unit price is much, much higher.
And that's the real kicker. Your need for food doesn't change, but your ability to buy it in the most economical way becomes a privilege. You are literally paying a premium for not having enough money up front.
And this trap, it goes way beyond just groceries. Take a pair of work boots, for example. If you have the money, you can invest in a high-quality, durable pair that's going to last you for years. But if you can only afford the cheapest pair on the shelf, you'll be lucky if they last a few months. And you end up buying them over and over and over again.
You know, there's actually a name for this. It's called the poverty durability trap. And it's this vicious cycle where being forced to save a little money today ends up costing you way more in the long run. It's paying more for being poor, plain and simple.
So, paying more for everyday stuff is bad enough. But believe it or not, it gets even worse when we start talking about financial services. This is where the penalties for not having money are spelled out in black and white, and they are not forgiving.
Just think about it. What do you do in an emergency if you don't have access to a regular bank loan or a credit card? For many, the only options are the ones you see here, and things like payday loans, they can have annual interest rates of 400% or more. Compare that to a credit card at maybe 20%. These services exist for people with no other choice, and they charge a brutal price for it.
And what about the cost of just one small mistake? For someone with a financial cushion, a late bill payment is an annoyance, maybe a small fee. But for someone living paycheck to paycheck, that exact same late bill can set off a catastrophic chain reaction of penalty fees and extra interest that turns a tiny problem into an absolute crisis.
And that's the crucial point. Our financial system is really built for people who have stability. If you don't have that, the system itself charges you extra, effectively punishing you for the very instability it helps to create.
But here's where it gets really insidious. The heaviest costs aren't always about money. Some of the biggest burdens are invisible. They're measured in wasted hours, in extra miles, and in crushing mental stress. And these are the costs that really lock people in place.
It's true what they say. Money buys time. It buys you a car so you don't have a 2-hour bus commute. It buys you a home closer to your job. It lets you pay for services that save you from waiting in endless lines. If you don't have money, your time is what gets eaten up by the simple logistics of staying alive.
And this time poverty, as some call it, is devastating. Every single hour you spend on a bus or in a line at a government office is an hour you can't spend learning a new skill, looking for a better job, or just resting so you can actually function the next day. It's a theft of your future. This constant grinding stress also creates what psychologists call cognitive load. Think of your brain as a computer. If all its processing power is being used just to figure out how am I going to pay rent this week or what are we going to eat tonight, there is literally no mental bandwidth left over for complex, long-term thinking. It's not about being undisciplined. It's about being out of brain space.
Okay, so we've seen all these different pieces, right? Paying more for basics, getting hammered by financial fees, and losing your time and energy to stress. But the real, terrifying power of this whole thing is how all these pieces connect and feed into each other, creating a trap that's almost impossible to escape.
This is how it works. It's a vicious feedback loop. It starts with those high costs we talked about, which means you can't save anything. With zero savings, one small emergency, a sick kid, a flat tire, forces you into that expensive borrowing. That borrowing creates debt, which eats up even more of your income. And boom, the cycle starts all over again. But this time, it's even tighter. So you see, this isn't just a straight line of bad luck. It's a system.
a trap, and its primary function is to strip away your margin for error. A small mistake that would be a minor setback for someone else becomes an absolute catastrophe.
And all of this brings us back to that one question you always hear in these conversations. You know the one. It seems so simple on the surface, but it completely misses the entire point of everything we've just discussed.
Given the everyday premiums, the financial penalties, the time poverty, and the constant crisis mode, the question isn't, why don't they just save? The better question is, save from what? When every single dollar is already spoken for by inflated costs and fees before you even get it, what is there left to save?
And that leaves us with this. We usually think of the economy as a system that rewards success and wealth. And it does. But what we don't talk about enough is how that same system actively punishes the lack of money, creating these traps that make it incredibly hard to ever get ahead. And understanding that, that's the first real step.